Tyrese Haliburton has had a really slow start to this season. Through 12 games, he's averaging 16.2 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, and 8.5 assists per game on 40, 28.7, 77.5 splits, and a 52.2 true shooting percentage. For a player coming off an All-NBA season and having signed a $244 million contract extension last season, this isn't ideal to say the least. Now, it's not as simple as quote-unquote he's bad now, especially for a 24-year-old who has 2 All-Star appearances, an All-NBA selection, and led the league in assists last season. However, at the same time, I do think his current play does expose some flaws in his game. And in this video, I want to talk about Haliburton's struggles to start this season, what you might be able to expect moving forward, and what kind of player he really is. But before we go any further, if you're new and like basketball, I'd really appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be notified whenever I release a video. If you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content, and doing all those things are the best way to let YouTube, and more importantly, myself, know that you enjoy the content, so I can make more of it in the future. Anyways, let's talk about Tyrese Haliburton. Haliburton has struggled as a shooter to start this season, shooting just 28.7% from 3 on 7.8 attempts per game. This stands out because historically he's a good to great shooter. Prior to this season, over his career, he's shooting 39.3% from 3 on 6.2 attempts per game, and in 3 out of his first 5 seasons, he's shooting 40% or better on at least 5 attempts per game from 3. I don't know the specifics behind it, but when I watch him play, I do think he's dealing with some kind of injury that's affecting his ability to shoot the basketball, because it's not just his 3-point numbers that have gone down, his free throw numbers have gone down from 85% that he's usually at for his career to 77% this season. I do think as the season goes along, and assuming that he does return to form, gets whatever this potential injury is healed, and he's fully healthy, the numbers will go back up. It's just hard to believe that a guy who's been a good to great shooter ever since he stepped onto an NBA court and was a great shooter in college is all of a sudden a horrible one. And I also believe that he will look closer to that All-NBA level guard that we know he can be if/when the shooting starts to improve. However, I do think his inefficiency from 3 and his lack of value in that area to start this season has exposed a real flaw in his game. Now, while I think Haliburton will get better and be a star player throughout the course of the season as the shooting gets better, if you know any specifics about injuries, if you cover the Pacers or you closely follow them and you know more than I do, more than likely, I don't know if you have any explanations in the comment section below about that. But regardless, I do think the start to this season has shown how reliant he is on his 3-point shot. This season, he's taking more 3s than 2s, and throughout his career, it's a near even split between 2-point and 3-point volume. And the question I have is about his rim pressure. He's never been a major rim pressure threat in his career. His career high in rim volume is 4.7 per game. His career high in free throw attempts is 3.6 per game. It's never been a real strength of his game. His game is based around the jumper a lot of the time. Now, that's not to say he can't hit layups or he's useless inside the arc. He is actually very efficient when he does take shots at the rim, but he doesn't take a ton of them, to say the least, and he's not a real rim pressure threat in that regard. And with his 3-pointers not falling at the rate it usually does, his lack of rim pressure has been very evident to start this season. He's not attacking the rim at the rate guys like John Moran or say Gilgeous-Alexander are. He's not drawing fouls at the rate that guys like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, or Jalen Brunson do. And I think a great comparison is what LaMelo is doing this season. He's taking a ton of 3s as well, but among guards, he is 6th in rim volume and 12th in free throw attempts, compared to Haliburton, who ranks 69th among guards in rim volume and 35th in free throw attempts. And you see the difference. Haliburton is averaging under 20 points per game, while LaMelo is averaging nearly 30 points per game. Now, when it comes to Haliburton, he's not a bad athlete, but he's not a great one either. He has solid first step, solid quickness, and pretty good speed, I would say, but it doesn't stand out amongst his peers. He's not a bad vertical athlete, but he's not a super explosive one either. He has a good handle, but I don't think it's quite good enough to make up for what I would describe as average athleticism. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but rim pressure is the most important skill for a main option in the NBA. The ability to dictate defensive movements because you are that much of a threat at the basket creates opportunities for others. And honestly, not only this season, but really throughout his career, Haliburton hasn't proven to be anything more than average at that, even when he's healthy, which limits what he can do and how effective of a player he is when that shot isn't falling. Now, with all that being said, Haliburton is still one of the most efficient playmakers in the NBA. I would argue he is the most efficient playmaker in the NBA. He's averaging 8.5 assists per game on a 4.47 assist to turnover ratio, which is incredible for somebody that is passing the basketball as much as he does. He has great vision, he has really great accuracy, he makes incredible decisions as a passer, insanely effective off the ball as a passer. I feel like that's honestly where he's most valuable, and that's where you can make an argument he's the best off-ball passer in the NBA. And when the shot is falling, he's also very effective on the ball, and I do expect the shot to get better as the season goes along. This can't be taken away from him. For all the concerns I have about the rim pressure and how that limits how effective he is when the shot isn't falling, it doesn't change the fact he's one of the smartest players in the NBA. He has elite playmaking tools from a passing perspective. How effective he can be as a playmaker is dictated on how much defenses have to focus on his scoring. And like I mentioned, I do think he will be more effective as that shot starts to fall eventually. He is one of the best playmakers in the NBA. He's a high field player. He can make passes with and without the ball in his hands in terms of being the primary focus of the guy. He has the ball when he's bringing it up and he's making that pass, or he's coming off his screen and rolling and then making an extra read. He's really great at that stuff. He's somebody that's versatile as a passer, one of the most versatile in the league. And I think the fact that he still is averaging close to 9 assists per game on great efficiency, even with some of the scoring struggles, I think that does speak to how great of a playmaker he is. Tyrese Haliburton is one of the most unique players in the NBA because there aren't many guards that are like him. Usually a player that takes as many threes as he does and doesn't really attack the rim also don't have the playmaking tools he has, and vice versa. Most players who have his playmaking tools have a better handle and attack the basket more. I do believe the fact that he's not a real rim presser threat and doesn't have elite on-ball creation ability, although I wouldn't say he's a bad on-ball creator, I think that somewhat limits his ceiling. I prefer Ja Morant over him because he is a significantly better rim presser threat and an on-ball creator. And I think I slightly prefer LaMelo because he's a more natural scorer and shot creator. Now, that's not a knock on Haliburton because they all are elite point guards. I would describe all of them as top 5 to 10 at their position in the league when healthy. But I think that lack of rim pressure really does limit the chances of Haliburton being the main option on a contender. I do believe his jumper will get better as the season goes along. I think the numbers will get better as the season goes along and get back to what we saw them at over his previous 2 seasons. But it's hard for me to view a player who relies this much on a jumper as a potential main option on a contender. He can still be very effective as a connector when the jumper isn't falling, but in the playoffs, when it becomes more physical, you need a main option that can attack the basket. With that being said, I do believe that when Haliburton is healthy, he is one of the best point guards in the NBA. And I'm not saying that he isn't. I still think he can return All-NBA value. I'm not suggesting otherwise. And it hasn't been all bad. He's had great games against Dallas and New York this season that show that starter player is still in there. But the way he returns the value as that All-NBA guy is different than what you would expect from a player that usually puts up 20 to 22 points and 10 plus assists. It's not what you would expect based off that stat line. It's more as a second option. He will have the ball enough in his hands to be a guy that you have to at least respect when the shot is falling, and he returns elite off-ball value as well that makes him one of the most lineup flexible and more versatile starters in the league. Ideally, what I believe Haliburton is on a contender is a high-end number 2 option that can make All-NBA second or third teams throughout his career. Somebody that plays off a starter while also providing major value as a passer on and off the ball. To me, he's actually the perfect guard to put next to a player like Anthony Edwards. The skill sets complement perfectly. Haliburton wouldn't have to worry about having the basketball in his hands all the time and would thrive playing off an elite creator. And that elite creator, whether it be Anthony Edwards or someone else, would have a real off-ball threat that they can rely on. Someone that can handle the basketball when needed to alleviate some of that pressure, and also make up for some of the potential playmaking limitations that main option might have. I think there's a world where Haliburton is still putting up 20 to 23 points per game, 10 plus assists per game, flirts with 50, 40, 90, makes all NBA teams, but it's more as a versatile second option than it is as a primary, and I think that's still a great player. He's a unique guard. He's somebody that's a hybrid because the scoring values are what you look for in a 2 guard, but the playmaking values are ones you look for in a point guard. It makes Indiana an interesting team to monitor when it comes to the future of the team. I think anything's possible. Maybe they do build around Haliburton and become that contender, but I also think there's a world where they view Haliburton as a cornerstone, but maybe not the centerpiece, and try and get another guy. I'd be very interested to see how that plays out. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notify whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball, and if you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content, and doing all those things are the best way to let YouTube, but more importantly, me know that you enjoy the content so I can make more of it in the future. Let me know what you think about Tyrese Haliburton. Do you think this is just a slow start? Do you think there's some injuries factoring in? Or do you think that he has regressed as a player regardless of all those things? I'd love to hear that down below. Where do you rank him among point guards in the league? Anything like that, comment section down below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.